Excuse me. Welcome into the Bro 4 Squad Podcast, episode 35. This is our 2017 Halloween Spooktacular. That was me choking on myself, trying to do a scary voice. I am your host, Jeff Hornacek. Guys, thank you so much for checking us out. If this is your first time listening to us, we're just a bunch of bros who usually talk superheroes, movies, which is today's episode, before we even start, and superhero movies. Before we get going, let's go around and meet my sidekick today, a man who needs no introduction, but he's going to get one anyway. Now, Ronnie Cycli, you are very coy about what you do for a living. So my intro question to you is, what is your job?
Again, I'm going to address this and be as straightforward as I can because I'm sick of the rumors. I'm sick of the gossip, seeing it on Twitter. I am a lawyer.
What?
Okay?
What
Plain
other?
and simple. I am a lawyer.
What is the gossip though? Like, what is?
Have you not? I mean, it's like trending on Twitter. Like Trump's like fake news all the time. It's just like, come on, man. Like, it just let it go.
This seems.
That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds awful. I mean, to be so important that's what gets talked about. Diving right into our show, now that we've established that, as any bro knows, the most important thing in life is chest day. And what better way to start off chest day in Halloween time season? That's horribly worded. It's October, guys, all right? It's Halloween, and if you listen to our podcast, you know that even though we love movies of all type, horror is one that we don't get to talk often about enough. So let me give you a little anecdote real quick. Cycli and I back in high school could never get dates because apparently it's weird to still collect Pokemon cards as a junior. So we ended up going to horror movies with each other instead. So we wanted to start off the show today with something people out there can chime in on with us on Twitter, on Facebook, comment below. But Cycli, what is your most anticipated horror movie either left this year or even just one coming out in the next few years that you're really excited to see?
That's going to be a tough question. There's a lot coming out, and, you know, I just saw, well, I think most of our listeners probably saw it too, the new It came out last month, and I thought they did a phenomenal job, and because it was done so well, I am very much looking forward to It Part 2. You know, there's also a couple movies out there, Jigsaw, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Strangers 2 is coming out, which I'm pretty nervous about because I'm a big fan of Strangers, so I'm going to stick with It Part 2.
It's funny you mention that. This is all speculation, but what do we have better to do on this podcast than start rumors? The cast, or the rumored cast of some of the actors playing the Losers Club in the sequel is incredible. I've seen Jessica Chastain, heavily rumored, Christian Bale, Michael Fassbender, Chris Pratt. These are all people who are circling the role, so if even like half of them end up getting cast as the respective kids, I mean, that's just insane. And I think with the success it had at the box office, you're going to see a very increased budget as well. Obviously, it broke a lot of records. Strangers 2, I am beyond excited for that. We'll talk about Strangers a little more in the podcast, but there have been rumors of either a straight-to-DVD or like very low-budget sequel coming out for that movie for a long time. And as someone who shit their pants twice in the theater, once because I ate a bad taco, the other legitimately attributed to the film, I'm really excited to see that. Just for our listeners at home, do you have any idea what the plot is or if anyone is returning from the original?
Well, I have to hope that she died at the end, okay? Because that's what, to me, made The Strangers a better horror film, because I don't like the idea that someone got away and she survived. I think they did an amazing job that we didn't find out who the killers were, and I hope the daughter's dead. I really do. I hope she doesn't return, and I hope it's kind of a new cast, because I think that shows how much more of a real movie that is than just like this typical Hollywood horror movie.
Liv Tyler's agent is at home like, fuck you, no, she needs to come back. Do your job, bro, and then you won't have to depend on us. How would you feel about the sequel being them just doing the same thing again in another house? Do you want it to follow like the Jehovah's Witnesses kids or something? To do like another point of view from that night? Like at the wedding? I don't know.
Another point of view would be pretty sick. I think they're going to, and this is where my concern is coming from, I am really concerned they're going to involve Tyler again, have them come back. We're going to find out who they are, and she's going to be the hero, and it's really going to, like, let me down. I hope that's not the case, but they also can't redo the exact same movie. So I do like a point of view thing or something of that nature, but I hope they stick to the idea that we don't know who these people are and we never find out, which is the biggest reason to fear them.
I've pitched the point of view idea for a couple different movie sequels before, and I always get shot down. So I like that you agree with me. I think you're correct in agreeing with me. All right, my most anticipated movie is a film that actually just came out as we're recording this, October 6th. It came out in the UK. I could not find a US release date. It's a movie called Better Watch Out. Critics are describing this as Home Alone meets The Strangers, which again, I'm kind of playing off that. I just watched the trailer. I would advise you at home, don't watch the trailer or watch like the first 40 seconds of it and stop because it spoils a lot. Like a lot of things happen in the trailer. I was like, damn it, dude, what am I going to see this for? But the premise is intense. So it takes place around the holidays. And it's two kids are hanging out. They're younger kids, maybe like 8 to 11 years old. And they have a babysitter come over. And the babysitter is probably 15, 16. And while she's there, she gets a phone call from her boyfriend and they break up. And her boyfriend,
that's sad.
I know, it's horrible. That's the movie. It's true love gets unrequited. No, so her boyfriend is played by, I believe, Doc Ray Montgomery, who, if you've seen the new Power Rangers movie, he plays the Red Ranger. And basically, him and his friend come over to the house and terrorize the three people, the two kids and the girl. It had a little bit of tongue-in-cheek element, but it was very dark in the trailer that I saw. Again, watch the trailer at your own risk because they spoiled way. I'm kind of pissed now. Like, I don't even. I'm a sick person, so I normally spoil things on my own, but let me do that on my own. It's called Better Watch Out. If you get a chance to check it out, let me know what you think, because if you live in the UK, or if you, I think it looks so interesting that you're going to book a flight and fly over there and watch it, then I'm interested to hear what you think. All right. On to the second part of our show. After we do our chest day, we always like to drink a nice protein shake. So, Cycly, when was the last time you shit your pants?
Oh, about 5 minutes ago.
Now,
just talking about these scary movies is moving some things down there. It's really unhealthy.
Got people at home, no joke. Ronnie Cycly is recording this from the bathroom at his house because it's by a very comfortable space heater.
Yeah, it's very cold. And first of all, if someone's going to get killed, there's a lot of rooms in here. They can't come in. And my wife is out there. She'll be the first to go. And then probably the dog. So I'm barricaded in here. I'm safe.
That's what we call leadership. It's pinpointing or piggybacking off shitting your pants. I can pinpoint it to exactly the last minute. The last minute that I shit my pants based on the scariest scene in any movie I've ever seen. So, Cycly, we'll go to you first. As a horror fan, what is the scariest or some of the scariest horror movies you've ever seen in your life? And don't say the footage of me in JV basketball when coach tried to put me at the center position, because we all know that was bullshit. I was set up to fail.
For me, it's the time when you were playing JV basketball and you were put in the center position. I mean, that's just...
Wait.
No one's really brought that up before, so I'm glad. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Okay, aside from that.
For me, it's kind of a theme because this is just my personality. The type of scenes that really just get me to jump in my seat, to kind of have that overwhelming sense of fear, are the scenes where, we have a character in a room who is obviously unaware that someone else is in the room. And when it's done well, and the particular scenes I'm thinking about are maybe one of the most iconic scenes in any horror movie is in The Silence of the Lambs. Jodie Foster in the last scene, she's in the killer's house, and the lights are out, and the killer has night vision goggles. And if your hairs on the back of your neck don't stick up in that scene when he's taking his hand 1 inch behind her head, he's messing with her, she has no idea he's there, then you obviously don't have a soul.
You're dead inside.
And there's another scene in a more recent movie, the original Saw, where is it Adam, who he's in his apartment and the power is out, and he's a cameraman, and he knows something's going on with that jigsaw noise, the puppet noise. That I can't. Yeah.
That was a horrible
impression.
impression.
He starts using his camera flash to try and figure out who's in there, and then sees in the closet is that horror of a pig mask that lives in my nightmares.
The pig mask also looks like my ex-wife, Rachel. So that was extra haunting for me. That Adam scene is incredibly scary. The Silence of the Lambs one, just super iconic. For me, I got two. One, I'm gonna take it way back. All right, now we're gonna have the debate here in a second on horror versus thriller. Where do you draw the line? But that Adam scene, I have to think, was a bit of an homage to the Alfred Hitchcock directed Rear Window movie, which if you've seen Disturbia, Disturbia is kind of like a modern day remake of Rear Window. Basically, the plot is Jimmy Stewart plays a photographer who breaks his leg, and he's just holed up in his apartment for several weeks because he can't work, and he starts watching his neighbors behind him, like all of it in his apartment complex, almost obsessively, similar to Shia LaBeouf watching his neighbor in Disturbia. And Jimmy Stewart is pretty convinced that one of them is a murderer who killed this woman who came in a few nights ago, never left, and chopped up her body. And the end scene, and spoilers alert for Rear Window, but it's about 70 years old, so if you haven't seen it, like, when you gonna do it, bro? The person confronts Jimmy Stewart, comes in his apartment, the power's out, and since he's a photographer, he starts flashing his camera in his eyes in an attempt to blind him and ward him off. And Hitchcock, what he could do with music in a time where like sound design and everything else, jump scares weren't near what they are now. He had to manufacture all that. That was incredible. The other scary scene for me, and I just remembered how, honestly, this movie traumatized me for like 5, 6 years. The Jessica Biel Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003. The scene where they first go to the house in Travis County, Texas, and they don't know what's going on, and they're walking around, and the one guy's watching like Looney Tunes or some animated show on TV, and Leatherface walks in the room behind him, stands there for a second, no music, slowly pulls an axe out, and I'll just say he doesn't end up tickling him, is what happens. That scene to me was one of the scariest scenes ever, and I can't watch Looney Tunes since. So sorry, Warner Brothers.
Just murder walking in the background of thing. We go back to Strangers. One of the best parts of that movie is the killer's just standing in the background, and the characters having no idea they're right there. Just, man, that really gets me.
Cycly, I don't know if you want to talk about this now or in the thriller versus horror debate, but there's a sleeper movie on Netflix that you know about that has kind of a similar fear-building ambiance. Do you want to bring that up now? Or
and if you haven't watched, I mean, I'll go ahead and go now because seriously, this needs to get more attention. I think it's almost, 6 months old, maybe a year old. It's this movie called Hush. Maybe you've seen it to our listeners, but if you haven't, I cannot recommend a movie more highly. And it's very short. It's about an hour 15, hour 20 minutes. So you really don't have an excuse not to watch it. And essentially, I'll just give you a plot. It's almost the same thing as The Strangers, but it involves a single girl living in a country house, and she's deaf. She's deaf, and I'm telling you what this movie does. Without the sound effects, they literally make you feel like you're deaf. So she can't hear where someone's coming from the house. She has no idea. She can't use that sense to protect her, to know if the guy is on the other side of the house or right behind her. And honestly, I don't know if it's that well known, but people need to be talking about this movie. Go watch Hush.
I think the best compliment I can pay to Hush, and it's a very quick watch, it's like 80 minutes long, is that in the movie, everyone acts the way that you think a person would actually act in that situation. There's never a scene where you're like, "What? Why the hell are you doing that?" Which drives me nuts in horror movies when they're not like making fun of themselves. So that's one of the coolest things about Hush. And again,
I mean, they put you in the perspective of, I've never thought about what it would be like to be deaf in that scenario. But man, I felt like I was deaf. They go, like, half the movie's so quiet, and you just feel that eeriness, and it grows, it's crescendoing on you, and it's a fantastic film.
Yeah. And they do a great job with the sound design. There's times where, like, something will happen, and they basically make you, they kind of, like, dumb your senses down to sort of feel what she would feel in this situation. It's pretty fucking cool. All right, on to our very last segment. It's our question and answer segment, which we like to call Do You Even Lift, Bruh? Which is the question that any bro always asks his fellow bros. And Mr. Cycly, today we have a question coming from good friend of the pod, Bradley Taylor, at TaylorBrad76, who just comes right out and asks it, what's your favorite horror movie? So let's just go anytime, any period ever. One horror movie that you always think like, damn, that's mine.
You want me to start?
Yes.
I feel bad we're talking about some similar type movies, same movies over and over, but there's a reason because they're done so well. But I got to go with kind of three because they all represent different types of horror movies. And for me, one is The Strangers we've talked a lot about because for me, my biggest fear is realism. My biggest fear, that's not a ghost story. You can literally be murdered by some random people coming into your house with a home invasion. And it's done to perfection. It's literally one of the most realistic horror movies, I think they do a great job of not, doing the whole like, oh, she's gonna run upstairs and do this and that. It's very realistic to me. I'm gonna go with on the thriller side, Silence of the Lambs. I mean, you can't discount a movie. We can talk about thriller versus horror, but it did win Best Movie. Oscar's the only horror movie to win Best Movie. And here's another movie I'm going to throw at you that's not talked a lot about. It's called The Orphanage. It is a Spanish film, not the American film about the little person dressing up like a little girl. That one's trash. Go watch The Orphanage in Spanish. I know a lot of foreign films aren't as scary when you're talking about a scary movie because you've got to read the subtitles. But this movie, it does it so well. It is a little paranormal, which usually doesn't get me going, but this movie was done so well, and I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Just go watch The Orphanage. If you have not seen that, you will be pleased that you did.
Yeah. So it's for me, man. I want to just say Saw because it's one of my favorite movies ever. It's too easy. It's low hanging fruit. People out there be like, "Oh wow, real bold prediction or claim there, Hornacek." Let's give you some applause. So I have a couple that I like for various reasons. I don't know if these are my absolute favorite horror movies, but they scared me on different levels. So first off, this one creeped me the fuck out. I will never ever watch it again. But it was powerful. It actually like affected me when I left, and that's The Hills Have Eyes. That,
oh wow! I didn't
God,
think about
I mean
that.
that movie, dude. I'm not even kidding you. I had trouble sleeping for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's jarring. There's things in it that I don't ever want to see again.
Brutal. Just brutal.
I mean, I kind of mean that as a compliment. So that one's one. One that's very similar to that in terms of how visceral it was, just incredibly visceral. Like I was like exhausted when I got out of it. Was The Descent. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. It's very close quarters, which the entire time you're like, dude, I know I'm in a wide open theater, but like I'm fucking trapped right now. I'm trapped with these people. And another movie that I didn't really like the first time I saw it, and then the more I thought about it, I was like, all right, that actually was pretty unique, and I get what it was going for. But The Cabin in the Woods, directed by Joss Whedon, starring Chris
That's
Hemsworth.
a great movie, in my opinion.
It is. I did not get it the first time I saw it. It was way over my head, and I actually hate people who like, oh, well, you did not understand the film, hence why you didn't like it. But this one I actually think that's kind of applicable for. I missed what it was going for. I've thought about it and rewatched it once or twice since, and I was like, all right, maybe I was just kind of an idiot the first time.
It's just like that makes every horror movie real. And it kind of just took every horror movie ever and made it into the same exact universe.
It's kind of interesting because without spoiling anything, if you haven't seen it, it is a horror movie that connects to every other horror movie ever made. Like it's in the same universe as every other horror movie ever.
I love The Ring. Yeah, I mean, we didn't even talk about The Ring and stuff like that, but the scene in Cabin in the Woods where they go to the Japanese girls, and yeah, it's really well done movie. Whether or not you can debate it's scary, it is a well done movie that if you love horror movies, you got to see it.
Yeah. Cycly, before we go, I want to have this debate with you because people out there are going to say, oh, you left out this movie, idiots. Or they're going to be like, why did you include that movie? It's not a horror movie. So horror versus thriller, where do you draw the line? And are they really that different at the end of the day? Or yes, they are that different.
I think people, and for me as a lover of both genres, they're pretty interchangeable. But I think people start to lump horror with these movies like, Hostel, Saw, Friday the 13th. The movies that kind of go with, whether they're good or not, I'm not debating that. They're really movies just based on gore and killer coming after you and you're running away.
Yeah.
And for me, a thriller is, in my opinion, just has a little more, but I think how people interpret it, has really a smart villain, a smart, strong character, whether female, male, lead character. You talk about the movie Seven, you talk about Silence of the Lambs. There's so many different thrillers that to me are horror because they're scary, but they're not viewed as this horror movie genre because they're smart. And I think so horror gets a negative typecast sometimes, where thriller, you just respect the actors, you respect the writing and things like that. I think Saw was one of those movies that is labeled a horror film, and I hate when people tell me, oh, it's just a gore and porno. It's just, it's horror pornography. There is depth to Saw.
Yeah.
And people don't like to talk about it. So I am really firm in the horror thriller being one of their own. And I think people need to realize that just because something's labeled horror doesn't make it just this like mindless villain with mindless teenage characters who are doing stupid things and getting what they deserve, kind of thing. So I understand where people say Silence of the Lambs isn't a horror movie. Horror film. But I'm sorry, though, you're on your edge of your seat when you're watching that movie, especially if you're seeing it for the first time.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing that I'll just say to sort of put the cherry on top of what you said, by the way, nothing about talking about murder and gore makes people want ice cream more. But you and I, Cycly, when we watch the Saw movies, and we're honestly saying this, so if you think we're lying, we've lied about a shit ton of stuff on this podcast. This is not one of them. My least favorite part of those movies is the traps of the Saw movies. To me, it's the least interesting part, and it gets gratuitous at times. The reason you and I kept going back, and the reason that we'll be here for check out our Saw movie commentary, which is going to be dropping right before Halloween, and then our Jigsaw review once it comes out, is because we were invested in the story, and when you're invested in the story, you get so much more scared because there are stakes. So,
yep.
Case in point.
A horror can do a story, and I think people avoid it. Do a story with your horror movie. It will make it a classic. And horror is hard to do. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. It is hard for there to be a fantastic horror film. So props to the directors and the writers and the actors who have given us some of these just amazing films.
Horror is the one genre where if you do it bad, it's a comedy, and it's the exact opposite of what you're going for.
Yeah.
All right, on that note, guys, we have been the Bro4 Squad podcast. Be sure to tweet at us, at Bro4 Squad. Let us know what you think of this episode. Let us know what you think about all of our opinions, whether we're right or wrong. Give us a like on Facebook, Bro4 Squad. Subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube, Bro4 Squad. That's 3 words. If you leave us an iTunes review, we will read the shit out of it on our next episode. And as always, check us out at bro4squad.com. We have a squad blog up there that I think you might like. For Ronnie Cycly, our legal counsel, I am Jeff Hornacek. Have a happy Halloween, and don't get murdered. What is in my throat?
Do you need a cough drop?
I need 6.